Springfield's Talk 1041, and a good Tuesday morning, everyone. I hope it's going well so far. My name is Nick Reed. Kamala Harris sat down, did a 60 Minutes interview. Pieces are, of course, circulating all over the internet, and let me put it this way. The Trump campaign and allies of the Trump campaign are the ones that are pushing out clips of Kamala Harris. Now, that's never a good sign for your campaign when it's your opponent that wants to make sure as many people see what you had to say as possible. Now, some of the push-outs are to give a response. So, for example, Kamala made a comment during the 60 Minutes interview that, well, if Trump were in the White House and Putin would be in Kiev right now. And so it's pushing that clip out in order to respond and note Trump was in the White House and Putin stopped the invasion. He had invaded the Crimean Peninsula during the Obama years, and then when Trump became president, he quit. And then when Trump was no longer in the White House, he resumed. So this theoretical, if Trump were in the White, we've been there and we saw what happened. So there's some of the push out of these interview clips for the purposes of responding to them, but many of them are just so you can hear what she has to say. And that's never a good sign. The Democrats right now are finding themselves in the same position that they were with Joe Biden when the polling numbers were beginning to make them very concerned. And that was this contradiction of, on one hand, being upset that he's not out there doing it right, but on the other hand, wanting him to get out there and do it right, which I guess isn't really a contradiction. Didn't word that very well. But they don't understand what is happening. They just can't figure it out. This is what happened with Joe Biden. They would run around, well, he needs to get out there more. But the problem was when he got out there more, he did himself more harm. And there is this bubble that Democrats live in which they deny reality. And the reality is that, much like with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, it's just not resonating with people. And Kamala Harris's history is one in which the more people get to know her, the less they like her. So it doesn't bode well for her. They picked someone, the donors did, that has a likability issue, that gives or is presented in the light of a first impression as very exciting and awesome. But the longer that you sit and talk with her, the more you're like, this person is not necessarily my cup of tea, and that's the way that the American people have responded. And so Democrats are beginning to get concerned because it's just not working. And the problem is you really can't make it work. If you have a bad candidate that people don't like, that's what you've got. I mean, this is your second choice, the first one chosen by the voters, then the second one chosen by the donors. And it's just inconceivable to the Democrats that this isn't working. And so some of these articles that are being written are a repeat of when Biden was beginning to really lose traction. And that is, Democrats are concerned about the strategy. Democrats are concerned about the strategy. And right now, the word is that the Democrats are concerned about this hide from the media strategy. And so their instinct is, well, she needs to do the opposite of that. The problem is, though, and we'll play some of the audio to demonstrate that, whenever she does those interviews, they do not go well for her. They just don't. The 60 Minutes interview, which we played a clip yesterday, this Whitaker fella over there at 60 Minutes, he does, now, of course, we have clips. And even what you see on TV is edited. But he asks straight up legit questions. It's kind of a, this is how bad things are today. You're suspicious when the media does their job. You're like, what's going on here? Are they trying to tank her? Is the fact that 60 Minutes is really presenting her with some realities here, and it wasn't any sort of gotcha situation where they really nailed her to the wall, but ask her questions that she's not going to be asked when she's on with The View or Howard Stern or Stephen Colbert. This is her week, by the way, of interviews that she's got planned out. But things have gotten so bad in this country with your mainstream, if you want to call it that, media being a campaign arm of the Harris campaign. When you see some actual journalism occurring, it makes you suspicious. It makes you wonder what's going on here. Are they trying to dump her? I mean, not to replace her, but are they figuring at this point, hey, she's going to have to answer these questions. Maybe if she does it now, then she can, sort of recalibrate. Or, hey, we need to write this one off. Let's just forget about it. Let's stop. I'm not going to cover for her any longer. It's gotten to the point of embarrassment here. Have to ask these questions, and it's not my fault if she can't answer them. This is on her. It's not my responsibility to get her elected, and if she doesn't win, we'll survive another 4 years of Trump, and it'll be an opportunity for the Democrats to regroup and maybe actually get some qualified individuals instead of candidates that have to hide from the media. They're allies. The poly markets, these are the betting markets, once again have Trump increasing odds, Kamala decreasing, and he is ahead in those. We've got some audio. CNN, Harry Eaton, once again breaking apart some of their numbers and noting what is, once again, bad news for Kamala Harris, noting that at this point, if she wins, it will be historic in the sense that no one in her position has ever won with the, given that it's her party in the White House currently, with such negative numbers in terms of the American people believing where we're headed in terms of a country, that it would be a historic win for her to take it. Now, there are some differences, obviously. She's doing everything she can to separate herself from this administration. So it's not really a run for re-election, but she's got Biden out there making sure everyone remembers that she has been instrumental in every decision that he's ever made. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Latest news update.
The first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight clear with a low around 47. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 80. And then on Thursday, sunny with a high near 82.
Okay, local for less coming up Friday. Springfield Little Theater's Murder on the Orient. Now, this to me is unnecessarily confusing. It's not that confusing. I had a conversation with Houston yesterday about this whole thing. We were talking
Yes.
off air, It's not like real confusing, but I don't know. All right. It for $25, you get a $50 gift certificate to Springfield Little Theater specifically for Murder on the Orient Express. That you then use the gift certificate to purchase the tickets. Now, ticket prices vary. So I suppose to me, it's just much simpler. Oh, buy one ticket, get one free, or get tickets for half price. The reason that things get complicated is because they have different prices for tickets. I think 22 is the lowest price, right?
Yeah,
if I remember
like
right.
that.
Yeah,
or 17 maybe.
Yeah, and there may be. I randomly looked. I looked like on Thursday night, and 22 that was the lowest that I saw. So anyway, somewhere around there. So yeah, I mean. And I'm sure you have tax in there and so forth. So particularly for the $22 tickets, it would sort of come out even on that. But evidently, this is the way that we did the Wizard of Oz ones.
Oh,
And
yeah?
I did not know it. I think I was just saying, well, I don't know what I was saying. I was promoting it. But like Ron Burgundy, I was just reading it straight off the monitor here, evidently without paying much attention to it. So anyway, I just mentioned that to you. It's you still get it half price, but there's that step of you're getting the certificate, then you turn around and use the certificate. When you go to the box office and buy your tickets. Which the upside of that is, I suppose you get to pick your seats, and so you've got that part of it. But I just want to specify that. And I don't know, maybe that's a no-brainer for most people, but it confused me at first. And I like to share when I get confused because I, too, am human. Polly Market and CNN's Harry Enton tag team with more bad news for Kamala Harris. This is on CNN, breaking down. This guy does a pretty straightforward job. I mean, I find myself seeking out what it is that he says. He's on CNN, but he does a pretty straight up job of saying, hey, here are the polls. Now, he's not the pollster, but he says he really breaks them down. Here's what the polls are saying. This is what this means. And what is what I think is beneficial in the way that he does it, he compares it to, well, here's what happened last time. This is what these same polls, these same people said last time. So you get an apples to apples. In other words, if you have polling, and here's a polling outlet that sometimes shows Trump underperforming. Okay, well, if that's the case and you compare them to their numbers 4 years ago, at least you know that it's apples to apples in terms of, well, okay, they always underperform Trump or overperform Trump or whatever it may be. So this is yesterday looking at some of the poll numbers, and this is focusing primarily on the relevance of voters who believe that we are headed in the right direction versus the wrong direction and what that means for the White House incumbency.
28% of Americans think the U.S. is on the right track. And I want you to put that in a perspective, right? When does the average, when the incumbent party loses the election? Look at that. It's just 25%. That looks a heck of a lot like that 28%, right? That currently think the country is on the right track. When the White House party wins, i.e. Kamala Harris's party, the Democrats, 42% on average think that the country is on the right track. This 25% looks a lot more like this 28%. It doesn't look anything like this 42%. This, to me, is a bad sign for Kamala Harris's campaign. The bottom line is it looks a lot more like a loser than it does like a winner when it comes to the country being on the right track.
Now, you don't have the visuals. Of course, he's showing a board, and things are listed in a way that helps convey what it is that he's talking about. And essentially what he's saying is, when it comes to we're heading in the right direction as a country, when the average of people who believe that to be true is around 48%, that, okay, we're heading in the right direction, then whomever the incumbent party in the White House is, they win re-election. Whether it's the same person running or it's the person's vice president or somebody else from the party, that they win. But when it is only on average around 25% of Americans say we're headed in the right direction, then the incumbent party loses the White House. And he noted it's at 28%. So that is within that 25% realm, obviously, and not the 48 or 47. I think 47% is what he said. So it's yet another indicator that suggests that things are not going well at all for Kamala Harris. And the Harris campaign knows this, which is why all of this turn the page crap and pretending like she's just this brand new person with fresh ideas and we need something new, when her policies that she is proposing, when she does propose them, and really tax increases are about the only thing she's been specific on, increasing taxes on many Americans and small businesses and corporations in this country. That is in line with Biden, other than she's going to do more of it. This is more money taken away from businesses, more money taken away from families, more money given to the government and taken out of the private sector and the economy. Not something that is ever proven to be positive for the American people. People in control of it, gives them more money to play with, which, I don't want to get too far off the beaten path here. But when you're not concerned about deficits, why even bother raising taxes? Other than you just hate a certain segment of the population of citizens and you want to punish them, or you want to demonize them to other Americans, pit Americans against one another, and then in order to demonstrate, see, I'm on your side, that group of Americans, the wealthy, you really stick it to them. And you're like, see, look what I'm doing. You got to continue to vote for me. I really stuck it to them. But you think about the absurdity of arguing that you need to raise taxes in order to have more money to spend, which, by the way, actually decreases revenue whenever, for example, the Trump tax cuts brought record amounts of revenue in. So if it was just truly about having money to spend on wonderful programs to help people, then the left would push for tax cuts because that's what brings more money in. Because the economy gets stimulated, more people are working, more people are spending money, and every time somebody is getting a paycheck, they are paying taxes into the Treasury. Every time somebody is spending that money, taxes go into the Treasury. And so that would be the push by the left if that's what they really cared about. But instead, they run around saying, no, we need to also raise taxes on rich people. So that's just to stick it to people. And they want to stick it to Americans so badly, they'll do it knowing that that gives them less money to spend. But ultimately, they don't care, when it comes to deficits, which is why it is so absurd. Not that Republicans have demonstrated that they do as a party. That is definitely for sure. But this talk about, we got to pay for it. Oh, really? Since when did that occur? All right, next, I want to play, I thought this was interesting as well. Because of the disappointment or the disappointing results of 2020, people don't necessarily, look at comparing this to that in a positive way for, Trump, right? I mean, even let's say just exclude the handful of states in which Democrats allowed votes to be counted that legally should not have been counted. It just, forget about that component for a moment. But polling, regardless of the outcome, underestimated Trump's results in 2020. So in other words, Trump actually, despite the outcome, Trump did better than the polls said he was going to do. So what does that mean this time around? He addresses that next. I'm Nick Reed. All right, another bit of audio. CNN yesterday, Harry Enton, he's their breakdown poll. He doesn't do the polls himself, but he breaks down the polls. He's like, here's what's going on. Now, because of the outcome of 2020, people forget that the polls underestimated Trump. So Trump did, by the numbers, the official numbers in the end, better than was expected. He was underestimated by the polls, in other words. And so the question then arose, okay, well, so we're looking at the poll numbers now. What does this mean? Because you look at nationally, which is largely irrelevant, but even state by state, where it's a toss-up, things look like they're a tie. And so the question that he's asked is, well, all right, well, let's say that, much like 4 years ago, that the polling is underestimating Trump. What does that mean?
What if the polls are off? There have been previous elections, of course, where that's happened. What if that happens?
What happens if the polls are slightly off? Remember, back in 2020, the polls underestimated Donald Trump. So what happens if we have a similar error across those key battleground states? Well, if that happens again, look at this. Donald Trump carries all of these Great Lake battleground states. He carries Nevada as well. Of course, he carries Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. And he gets, to get this, 312 electoral votes. So the bottom line is, if we have an error like we did 4 years ago, Donald Trump is going to win this election. Kamala Harris is going to lose.
Yeah, and 312 is by a hefty margin. 270 is the number that's needed. There's all this talk and focus about Nebraska. Nebraska is one of two states that doesn't award all of their delegates based off of the vote of the people in their state as a whole. Omaha gets its own electoral vote, and then the rest is the rest of the state. Well, Omaha, oftentimes it's more lefty. And so there have been some calculations that potentially, if this comes down to one electoral vote, Omaha in Nebraska could decide it. If they, as a more bluish area of the state of Nebraska, the bluish area in the state of Nebraska, decide to vote Kamala Harris, that could throw it her way. And in fact, there have been for years and years and years efforts by Republicans to change that. Democrats always try to stop it, which you can understand why. And they attempted once again. They came very close. There was a Democrat who switched parties. I believe it was earlier this year or last year, became a Republican. But when it came to having enough votes in order to get it done, he switched back to his Democrat ways and said, no, I'm not going to support this. And so that has sort of gone out the window. But all that being said, if what is analyzed here on CNN is accurate, and that is the polling underestimating Trump to the same degree this election cycle that it did last election cycle, then, presidentially speaking, then he'll win. Right now, based off the polls, he's going to get well over 270. He's going to get over 300 electoral votes, and it'll easily be his. The betting markets, Poly Market right now, has Trump at 52.8%, Kamala at 46.6% winning.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight, clear with a low around 47. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 80. And on Thursday, sunny with a high near 82.
Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Do you think that if the polls start looking even worse for Kamala Harris, to where she likely won't win, they might have Joe step aside due to health issues, install Kami Harris, and then have an event like war, pandemic, so that we can't switch out the office of the presidency, kind of like martial law? It's too late to swap candidates again. Then they're stuck with Harris. I don't think. I fully admit, you can dismiss nothing completely with these folks because they are kind of psychotic. I don't know. I don't believe that would be the route that they would go. I'm perhaps looking on the bright side of things. My hope is that if Trump wins, which I believe he is on track to do, the Democrats will ultimately, when it really comes down to it, just accept it, at least in the context where they're not going to do anything too insanely crazy. They're still going to make life as miserable as possible for him. But I believe that some within the Democrat Party will see it as, well, at least we know that this is it for Trump. There will be some degree of finality, because ultimately, what is it that they emotionally need? Emotionally, they need Trump to be gone. They have a psychological condition that not only is not addressed, but it is treated as if it's perfectly reasonable and virtuous, which just feeds it, makes them even crazier. But that's what they want. That's why they say things like he needs to be eliminated for good. We need to get rid of him for good. And if he gets reelected, although, of course, it's not that their minds won't explode, but there will be that sense of finality. At least they know when the end is that, all right, 4 years, then we'll be done with this guy. And it's not, I don't want to make it sound like I think that they're going to be just at peace with it. But they will see a light at the end of the tunnel. And that will maybe prevent them from going even beyond the lengths that they've gone before, which, of course, they tried to overthrow his presidency. They've spied on him. They falsified documents. They framed him or attempted to frame him in a number of different cases. And they could very well continue to do that sort of thing. I do believe there are some relatively rational Democrats still in the party, and they've spoken out and written op-ed pieces. They're people that you and I don't necessarily know on a national stage, but they're congressional Democrats that have said, listen, if Trump wins this thing, it's not going to be the end of democracy as we know it. He's been president before. We survived. We need to quit with this rhetoric. We'll be okay. And those individuals will take his win as an opportunity to reset. Because, I mean, honestly, if you're the this is me. If I'm in the Democrat Party and I look at what we have been dealing with by our own accord since Obama, you think about this. Went from Obama that was presented as this Jesus-like figure that could do no wrong. He was above politics. He was beloved. I mean, independent voters loved the guy. To their last two candidates, they have had to hide from their allies in the media. I mean, look at, I don't care if you agree. This isn't about whether they agree with Kamala Harris, with her Marxist ideology. It's not about that, but it's about electability. And look at what lengths they are having to go in order to try to get her elected. I mean, they have overturned their own primaries in every state, let the donors pick her, and then did a virtual vote amongst the delegates so that no one could even challenge her at the convention. The maneuvering that they have had to go through because their candidates are ultimately so bad. If I'm a Democrat and I'm really trying to think about what does the future look like, and it's not a future of totalitarianism, which I think there are some Democrats who, they would much rather just have good candidates. They'd much rather go back to the days of Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, these individuals that you didn't have to worry about rigging the elections. I mean, sure, you're going to have a little cheating here and there, but you didn't have to go to these extreme lengths. You didn't have to use the government to censor the opposition. You didn't have to try to throw your political opposition in prison. It was just much easier whenever they had good candidates. Instead of these horrifically disconnected nut jobs like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I think there's going to be this element within the Democrat Party that's going to be struggling with the crazies, the new Democrats. And the new Democrats are just, going to be unhinged, hysterical, rudderless, and, being drawn to the most radical amongst them. But then I believe you're going to have the more, relatively speaking, sensible Democrats that are like, this is a time for us to start cultivating good candidates again. Someone that average Americans will think, well, that's a normal person. It's not some child hair sniffing, fumbling fool who doesn't know where he is, or some word salad making individual who's never really earned any position she got legitimately. And get someone that's normal, relatively speaking, again. But who knows? The funny thing is that is the optimistic perspective of the Democrat Party. All right, coming up, a couple of, we look at the demographics, and there's the LGBT community, and there's the Hispanic community, and then the African-American community. But there are some other communities as well that, given tight races, can make a very big difference. Korean Americans, for example, and Arab voters. I'm telling you, this could be an election in which Kamala Harris could lose because of Arab voters in the United States. Report Korean Americans are pulling away from Harris and Democrats over inflation concerns. Korean Americans abandoning Vice President Kamala Harris and the Democrats over concerns regarding inflation and the economy, according to numerous reports. A 2024 Asian American voter survey from July found that 38% of Korean Americans in the U.S. identified as being a Democrat, while 25% identified as being a Republican. This represented a decrease from 2020 Asian American voter survey, which found that 51% of Korean Americans identified with the Democrat Party. So that is from 51% down to 38%. The survey also found that among Korean Americans, 57% expressed that the issue of jobs and the economy were extremely important when deciding how to vote. 33% said they were very important issues, and 9% described them as being somewhat important. 58% of Korean Americans also expressed the issue of inflation was very important when deciding how they would vote, while 32% described inflation as being very important. 8% of Korean Americans described the issue of inflation as being somewhat important. Cost of living, these are all economic factors, so they're all pretty much in line, in which you've got Korean Americans here that are, the lead concern is the economy. Another poll conducted between September 3rd through the 9th by NORC at the University of Chicago found in April and May, 27% of Korean Americans expressed support for Trump, while 35% expressed for Trump in September. So amongst Korean Americans, from April, May up until this, September, he has increased his support from 27 to 35%. And then, back in May, it was 49% for then Biden, of course, but that has dropped significantly with Kamala Harris. Now, I think the Arab American voters, particularly in states like Michigan, which she desperately needs to win, could very well be the key to her loss, or at least contribute to it. Breitbart is reporting that Arab American voters in Michigan have begun to sour on the candidacy of Vice President Kamala Harris due to the administration's support for Israel's offense in Gaza. Now, I know what you're saying, and you're right, that what support? I mean, they have been the biggest roadblock, or attempted to be the biggest roadblock, to Israel defending itself and eradicating terrorism in that region of the world. But the Arab Americans that the Harris campaign is targeting for their votes are the anti-Semitic Arab Americans who aren't happy with half measures. They want to finish what Hitler started. And so simply calling on Netanyahu to have a ceasefire, accusing Netanyahu of recklessly killing civilians, withholding aid to Israel, that's not enough for them. That does not win them over. And so it's for that reason that the portion of the Arab American population in America that Kamala Harris is targeting, she's not winning them. A recent report from the New York Times profiled the sudden split Arab and Muslim voters in Michigan have made with Kamala Harris, a voting bloc of 300,000 people in that state. The Times noted 4 years ago, Biden won Michigan with strong backing from many of those Americans, but interviews this weekend with voters, activists, and community leaders in the Detroit area suggested that support for the Democratic ticket had not merely eroded among Arab Americans and Muslims. In some neighborhoods, it had all but vanished. Imam Hassan Kazwini, who founded the Islamic Institute of America in Dearborn Heights, said he might vote third party this year after voting for Joe Biden in 2020, expressing his disappointment in Harris for her lack of even-handedness and fairness in handling the conflict. See what I mean by it's never enough for the extremists? Fatima Clade, a 25-year-old in Dearborn, said that most people she knows will be voting third party or Trump. Quote, I would rather have us not be involved in Israel whatsoever, but I do believe that Trump would do less damage overseas. And that's, of course, because of his history as president. Other voters in the state expressed similar sentiments as to why some Arab voters might go with Trump. At least one Dearborn resident, 27-year-old Hussein Bidon, said that Trump's America First message resonates. Quote, he cares more about what's going on in America. The Democrat Party seems to care more about what's going on in other countries versus their own people. According to the Times, the Harris campaign has been conducting outreach to Arab Americans and Muslim voters in Michigan and beyond. Quote, she met with community leaders while in the state on Friday. She has also received some endorsements from current and former Arab and Muslim elected officials and leaders, and from the group Engage Action, which focuses on building Muslim American political power. Just 2 weeks ago, Mayor of Hamtramck, Amir Ghalib, who leads the state's only all-Muslim city government, endorsed Donald Trump's bid for 2024, saying, Trump and I may not agree on everything, but I know he's a man of principles. Though it's looking good, he may or may not win the election and be the 47th president of the United States, but I believe he's the right choice for this critical time. I'll not regret my decision, no matter what the outcome would be, and I'm ready to face the consequences. Now let the caravan journey begin. This is just the starting point. There's another story. The pro-Palestinian group Abandon Harris has officially endorsed Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein, saying that it cannot support Harris, who is overseeing genocide. We're going to take a quick break, and it depends on the outcome of the election, but I'm telling you, if it is close, and if Trump wins Michigan, wins Wisconsin by a relatively small margin, this desire by the Harris campaign to cater towards the extremist wing, the anti-Semitic wing of the party, could be what lost it for him. And this Jill and the Jill Stein factor is contributing, because you have these Arab Americans, the real extremist ones that Kamala is catering to, they're going over to Jill Stein. Then you have, lo and behold, believe it or not, they do exist. And there's a lot of them. Arab Americans that actually kind of want peace. They like the idea of peace in the Middle East. And guess where they're going? Not to Kamala. They're going to Donald Trump. I think it's fascinating that you have the Trump people that are attempting to win the Arab American voters who want peace in the Middle East, while Kamala Harris, and they're making ground there, by the way. We've got some stories on that. The Harris campaign is attempting to win the eliminate all the Jews wing of the Muslim community, and she's not doing it because she doesn't go far enough, and they're going over to Jill Stein. Sometimes when you side with evil, you don't come out ahead. Sometimes you do. But this may be one of those cases where it doesn't work out for her. Someone had texted in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line asking about registering to vote. The deadline to register to vote for the presidential election is tomorrow. So you may want to get on that. You can use the Secretary of State's online registration portal. You can fill out registration directly with your local election authority. So that'd be the county clerk's office. I believe if you go to them, or they'll at least tell you where to go. But I think that would probably make sense. That would be where that is done. So if you haven't gotten registered and maybe think, I don't know if I'm going to vote, you may want to go ahead and just do it. That way you can if you decide that you are going to. You don't block yourself out. In the upcoming hour, this increasingly clear mistake the Harris campaign has made and how it is that they've tried to win over some of these Arab voters, and the Trump campaign seeking out some as well, successfully so, in fact. All that next. If you are a beer explorer like me, Bradford Light Pineapple Life Coach, you may see it on the shelves in some stores in the Springfield area as the Kansas Territory Brewing Company out of Washington, Kansas makes its way into the Springfield market thanks to Show Me Beverage. I know there's some, and they're tried and true, and I won't drink anything but a lot of people like to explore. If you like to have that standard go-to, Bradford Light could be for you. Pineapple Life Coach, something a little more unique. A lot of pineapple beers are very hoppy. This is not. And so if you like the pineapple, but you don't like the hops, and it's not overwhelmingly sweet, I think it's a I don't know, a good balance, if you will. That is Kansas Territory BrewingCo.com, the site. If you want to check out more, you probably see billboards in the area, and then you may be just looking at the shelves, and you're like, oh, there it is. I found it. I mentioned in the last segment that these states in which Michigan, largely, it's a state with a massively large population of Arab Americans, particularly given, talking about like 300,000. And when you're talking about vote totals in the, much less than that in terms of a difference, who wins, who loses, that can make a huge difference. And you have what is seen as not just the dwindling support of Kamala Harris by many in the Arab community, but complete disappearance altogether. At the same time, the pro-Palestinian group Abandon Harris has officially endorsed Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein. So they've gone beyond simply saying we're staying out of this election because Trump and Harris are both evil, and saying, all right, here's who it is that we encourage you to support. The group, which was formerly called Abandon Biden, before Harris ascended to the top of the ticket, released a press release yesterday announcing that it was supporting Stein and called on Muslim Americans to vote for her. Quote, we have consistently emphasized the importance of utilizing every available tool to resist injustice, with voting being a critical element. While voting alone is not the solution to our pursuit of truth and justice, it is a powerful tool that must be wielded ethically. The group added that voting is not just a political act, but a moral one. Abandon Harris contends that choosing between Harris and former President Donald Trump is picking between a greater and a lesser evil. Quote, we are confronting two destructive forces, one currently overseeing a genocide, and another equally committed to continuing it. Both are determined to see through it. Now, to normal people, there are vast differences between Biden, Harris, and Donald Trump's approach to dealing with this issue. Of course, Trump's approach was to cultivate a Middle East in which it wasn't possible to launch this sort of attack against Israel. The Biden administration's approach was to create conditions in which it did become financially and strategically possible for this sort of attack to be launched against Israel. But now that we're in it, Trump's approach is, and he said it, Israel, go after him, destroy him, do whatever you have to. His approach is the same approach that he told our generals to take when it came to ISIS. I'm not going to micromanage you. You know how to do this, get him. And that's what worked. The approach of the Biden-Harris administration has been to utilize the talking points of Hamas. And the latest news is, this is something we'll get together, there are reports that Biden is trying to bribe Israel to not go after Iran, offering an incentive package, including weapons and other things, if they leave Iran alone. So once again, you have this administration that is diplomatically working to try and give an assist to the wrong side. So normal people see that. But what the extremists within the Arab community, those who want all of the Jews eliminated, for them, there's no difference between Harris and Trump, because as beneficial as Biden and Harris have been to the terrorists, it's not enough unless you're carrying a Hamas flag and calling for the destruction of Israel and the death to all Jews. It's all or nothing with them. The miscalculation that the Harris campaign has made is thinking that as long as they are assisting Hamas diplomatically, that they would win the anti-Semitic wing of their party over, particularly within the Arab American community. But it is not happening. Meanwhile, pro-Trump activist is taking the initiative to register Arab American voters in Michigan, the Arab American population that wants peace. Michelle Dowie, a former White House official, has taken the initiative and launched an effort to register Arab American voters who are showing an increasing interest in Donald Trump. As Breitbart News has reported, some Muslim and Arab voters who are dissatisfied with President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are turning to Trump, hoping that he can bring peace back to the Middle East. There are also a wide variety of groups within the overall Arab American community, including some Christians and many other backgrounds. Dowie, who's reporting from Breitbart on immigration, flagged the issue as a major public concern in the years before Trump launched his political career, helped set the narrative for conservative activism on the issue. She herself has since married into an Arab American family from the Orthodox Christian community in Syria. Dowie, who worked in the Trump White House during his first year, saw that there was a potential constituency for the former president among Arab American immigrants, but that it was being overlooked. Acting independently from the Trump campaign, she set up a political action committee, Conservative American Middle Eastern PAC, and began mounting a voter registration effort. Dowie has been funding a grassroots effort to set up tables outside grocery stores and other communal locations in the Detroit suburbs to help pro-Trump Arab Americans register to vote and learn where their polling places are. Quote, there are Chaldean Americans in the hundreds of thousands in Oakland County, Michigan. There are Albanians there, other Christians. The vast majority of them are what I call the low-hanging fruit. They are pro-Trump conservatives, but they haven't even been registered to vote. My team is seeing a huge response, she said. Many of them don't want Harris. They want her to lose. Some of them are moving towards Green Party candidate Jill Stein, but we think there's room to convince them towards Trump as well, and that could be what gets us over the line. Many of the issues Arab American voters care about are simply bread and butter issues, not foreign policy, Dowie said, especially those relating to small businesses. I really think we can win Michigan, she said. We agree on important issues. More Arab Americans are coming out in support of Trump. So what you have here is a fascinating snapshot of the view of the path forward for each of the campaigns. For the Trump supporters, in this particular Trump PAC, Trump supporting PAC, I should say, the Arab Americans that they are targeting for support are those who are concerned about the economy, those that are concerned about being able to take care of their families here in the United States. Maybe they have no concerns about foreign affairs. That's irrelevant to them. All they care about is quality of life being better for them. At the same time, they are also targeting Arab Americans who want to see peace in the Middle East, who want to see movements and successes like the Abraham Accords that came during the first Trump campaign, that want to see countries like Iran once again have their funding cut off so they can no longer fund terrorists, all of the things that Trump did once upon a time. So that is the coalition of Arab Americans that the Trump supporters are really focusing on, while the Harris campaign is focusing on the anti-Semitic Arabs. I think that tells us a lot about the perspective of those two individuals, those two campaigns, and the culture of supporters amongst those two campaigns. Just look at who it is they're trying to win over. And then, of course, Hollywood celebrities are campaigning for Kamala Harris in Arizona again. Really rich elites. Kamala Harris has deployed a gaggle of uber-wealthy Hollywood celebrities with estimated personal net worths exceeding $200 million to campaign for her in Arizona. Actresses including Kerry Washington, Jessica Alba, Glenn Close, lending their star power to a Kamala Harris campaign event in Phoenix on Sunday, while Jennifer Garner put in a separate appearance on Saturday, according to a report from the Arizona Republic. Quote, I'm not here as Olivia Pope. I'm here because I want each of you to remember how powerful you are. Washington, whose estimated net worth is $50 million, reportedly said, making a reference to the character she plays on ABC's Scandal. Quote, each of you has the power to transform the trajectory of this country. Really? Because voting for Kamala Harris isn't going to do it. Jessica Alba, whose net worth is an estimated $100 million, spoke about how her working class parents struggled to get by while claiming that Kamala Harris will create an opportunity economy where we're not just going to get any more, we're going to thrive. Once again, this is the difference in approach and the difference in support. The blue-collar working person that is out there throwing their support for one campaign, and multi-millionaire celebrities that are in Arizona convincing the average everyday hard worker that they need to support the same person that the $100, $200, $300 million dollar net worth individuals are supporting. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight clear with a low around 47. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 80. And on Thursday, sunny with a high near 82.
You got a car care need, you got A1 Custom Car Care. I know I've mentioned it frequently over the last couple of weeks or so, but this is because of the hurricanes and now another one headed towards Florida. And it is very common after hurricanes come through that flooded vehicles make their way into markets all across the country, and they clean them up real good. And you can't tell that they've been in a flood, that they sat submerged in water oftentimes. But that's where the pre-purchase inspection with A1 Custom Car Care comes into play, because they get in there, they take things apart, and they can see the things that the average person doesn't see, that the Carfax doesn't see, that the person who's selling the vehicle may not even know themselves, because they haven't taken the time and or even have the staff and the ASE certified mechanics to take all that stuff apart and to look at it. But it's a service provided by A1 Custom Car Care, and I recommend. You think, well, do I really want to spend the money to do it? Trust me, you can save yourself so much money by doing it. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs, including pre-purchase inspection. There continues to be conflicting messages coming out of this administration as to whether there is or is not enough money for hurricane relief. And because of that, you have obvious confusion. And whenever the confusion surfaces, the White House, that is responsible for the confusion because of the contradicting bits of information, claim that asking questions or trying to get clarification as to what is the truth is dangerous. This is the Soviet-style environment that has been created by this government. I remember a time when Hillary Clinton screamed at the top of her lungs during the Bush years that she was sick and tired of people who say that people who are questioning the government are unpatriotic. And I mean, it was a very screeching loud. The message itself almost got missed because of just all you thought about was no wonder Bill Clinton had so many ladies on the side. It was awful. Oh, but the Democrats applauded her. Yes, that's right. And incidentally, during that period of time, this was post 9/11, and it was, Bush president and going into Iraq, which all but, like one Democrat supported doing. But then when it was something that turned in the polls, Democrats all of a sudden pretended like they didn't support it, and they started questioning it. And Hillary Clinton and Democrats are saying the most patriotic thing you can do in this country is to protest and to challenge the government. The most patriotic thing you can do in this environment, in this government, in this country is to question the government. That was the sign of a true patriot. We have gone from that to a Democrat Party that says it is flat out dangerous to question them. Fox Business reporting Mayorkas still says that FEMA has no disaster funds. But an IG report says that the agency is sitting on billions. Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas facing a new firestorm of criticism for claiming FEMA's out of disaster funds right as the DHS's Inspector General released a report saying FEMA's sitting on at least $8.3 billion in untapped, unspent money. Mayorkas said, quote, "We're expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season and what is imminent." The new controversy surfacing as Hurricane Milton has become a Category 5 storm, and massive evacuations are underway in Florida, which is still struggling from Hurricane Helene and as is much of the Southeast. But analysts say FEMA cannot tap unspent appropriations from long-ago crises, so the money sits frozen as 600 people are reportedly still missing from Hurricane Helene. At least 220 died, and entire towns were wiped off the map. Helene is the most catastrophic hurricane to hit the U.S. since Katrina in 2005. Budget experts warn that this new firestorm show that FEMA has been turned into a slush fund that the agency and the Biden White House can spend at will. And this is to some degree a point that Tom Cotton was making as Kirsten Whitaker on NBC was trying to defend the government, defend the administration. Like, well, now they say they can't touch that money. And Cotton made the point, that's funny because when it comes to their priorities, they have no trouble whatsoever getting out that pen, writing some sort of executive order and making it happen, even if the Supreme Court says you can't legally do it. But when it's something that's not their priority, and increasingly people are noticing that those who may be infected in terms of, or affected in terms of their inability to vote in this presidential election are, in all likelihood, Trump voters. They have no interest, apparently, in using this money. Now, one of the potential issues here that we could be looking at is, on one hand, an attempt to slow down assistance and cleanup. If we're going to look at it in the context of how does this affect the vote? And with the desperate levels Democrats have gone to in the past, I mean, they've used, quote, disasters to help them in the past. COVID, for example. They used COVID in order to loosen up voter integrity laws so that it would be easier to ballot harvest. You get random drop boxes put all over the place and stuffed with ballots. So let's not pretend as if the Democrats are somehow above utilizing some sort of life and death situation potentially in order to rig things to help them win an election. They've done it before. So many people, knowing what they've done in the past, looking at this current situation and wondering, are the reasons that they are dragging their feet on all of this, is it because of election season? Gee whiz, if we don't get things up and running, there may be people who aren't able to vote. And they just happen to be in heavy Trump areas. Well, one way you would do that is to argue, hey, we can't help it, we don't have money. And that was initially the talking point out of the White House. Well, there was a tremendous amount of backlash on it because if that was their plan, the plan was to help them electorally, right? Well, immediately the response was, remembering that FEMA was using dollars to help illegals, which is one of the biggest detriments to this administration. So here they, in an effort to potentially make a move that would help them electorally, end up opening a new wound. Because people are going, how are you out of money? Oh, wait, you've been spending hundreds of millions of it on illegals. That's right, we have an issue with that. So then you have, with the help of the network, spreading disinformation. Oh, no, that's not true. Money wasn't being spent on illegals. Despite the fact, of course, I mean, we played the audio yesterday of Karine Jean-Pierre in 2022 talking about FEMA spending money on illegals. I read to you a story from the New York Times at the time about the Biden administration using these dollars in order to fund illegals. And in that particular story was some whiny Republican critic of the compassionate move, noting that when hurricane season comes and we're out of money, this could be a problem. So, as is consistent with this administration, is there money? Isn't there money? If there is money, can it be used? Why can't it be used? We don't know. Yesterday, Peter Doocy was attempting to get Karine Jean-Pierre to answer some of these questions. And she circled herself into a corner that was so obvious. While she's talking, she folds up her binders and she doesn't storm out of but she's mad. I'm going to play that audio coming up. I'm Nick Reed. KSGF.com. You can stream us live there. We are on YouTube as well. Springfield's Talk 1041. You can find us. That is thanks to Springfield Raps. And we have a Local for Less coming up on Friday, 10 a.m. Springfield Little Theater's Murder on the Orient Express. The item is a $50 gift certificate for $25 that you will use to purchase the tickets. That 10 a.m. KSGF.com, Local for Less.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll have sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight clear with a low around 47. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 80. And on Thursday, sunny with a high near 82.
Peter Ducey got under Corinne Jean-Pierre's skin so badly yesterday, she kind of stomped off. I'd seen more conservative outlets referencing it as like red state. She stormed out of the briefing. I think that stormed out gets a little overplayed sometimes, but it's clear she was taking her toys home. I mean, she was not happy, and Ducey was not trying to be combative whatsoever. He was. The problem, one of the many problems that this White House has created, of course, as usual, is with communication. And you have different versions of different stories coming out of this administration. You have Mayorkas out there saying we don't have any money. You have the White House saying that that's not true. He didn't say that. Very clear. This is so frustrating to even have to have these discussions. Then you have the Inspector General's report of DHS, of which Mayorkas is head, saying not only they've got billions of dollars that they're just sitting on. Then you have folks within the administration say, well, yeah, it's there, but it can't be used for that. And then the obvious question is, why not? You people move money around all the time. Always. You have no trouble whatsoever. You use executive orders in order to repurpose dollars. Hey, incidentally, before I play this audio, this exchange, Has no one said, what about all of that COVID money that has still been unspent? What about that? Maybe we should use that. I mean, all over this country, still in Springfield, to get these announcements, oh, we figured out. We have to figure out how to use the COVID money because we don't need it. Oh, well, we'll give it to these people over here so that they can remodel this, and we'll send it to that over there. Hey, anybody got any suggestions? We got this money to burn. It was supposed to be for COVID relief. There's so much. This is one of the real problems with this government is that, we got to get all this. We have to get all this when they use emergencies. They've used it with hurricane situations before. And, with COVID, we have to take all of this money from you, Then it's not needed. So it's burning a hole in their pocket. So we got money burning a hole in our pocket, these COVID dollars over here that they're using on any and every little fun project possible. And meanwhile, there are people who are in a real true disaster. It's like, well, we just don't have the money. Well, we do, but it's in our right pocket, not our left one. Oh, well, we've got money over there, but, we're keeping that for a rainy day. This is a rainy day. Frankly, I don't know why Republicans aren't screaming this. Let's use all of that COVID money for this. Well, it can't be used for that because it's... To Tom Cotton's point again, this administration has no trouble whatsoever shifting money around when it suits them. So, Peter Doocy yesterday simply trying to get clarification regarding these dollars and what the heck is going on at the White House press briefing.
To the impacted areas. But instead, people want to do disinformation, misinformation, which is dangerous, because then when folks on the ground hear that, they may not want to ask for the help that they need. That is there for them. That's our focus here.
But President Biden is fond of saying, show me your budget and I will tell you what you value. If he's got money for people in Lebanon right now, without Congress having to come back, what does it say about his values? There's not enough money right now for people in North Carolina who need it. That's not misinformation.
Wait, no, that is your whole premise of the question is misinformation, sir. What you do? Yes, it's misinformation.
Is there money?
I just mentioned to you that we provided more than $200 million to folks who are impacted in the area, and I just shared with you that people are deciding not to. Wait.
Congress, that there's not enough money to help people.
We're talking about the SBA disaster loan.
That's money for people in North Carolina.
And that's important. And people in North Carolina need that. Wait, this is nothing new. Peter, this is nothing new. Congress comes together. They provide money, millions of dollars, for disaster relief. We're asking them to do the job that they have been doing for some time.
President Biden for some time. Jeffries, the president's letter is not misinformation. Would you agree?
No, the way you're asking me the question is misinformation. There is money that we are allocating to the impacted areas, and there's money there to help people who truly need it. There are survivors who need the funding, and it's there.
You don't like misinformation.
I actually said we have the money available to help survivors of Hurricane Helene and also Hurricane Milton. Now there's going to be a shortfall, right? Because we don't know how bad Hurricane Milton is going to be. And so we're going to need additional funding. That's
exactly what I just asked about. And you said it was misinformation.
Yes. What you're asking me is why Congress needs to come back and do their job. That's what you're asking me. Congress needs to come back and do their job and provide extra assistance, extra funding to disaster relief fund. That's what Congress needs to do. And we're going to continue to urge that. You may not want that, but that's okay. That's what this president wants, and that's what the vice president wants. Thanks, everybody.
All right, and that's it. It was the last 20 seconds. She's folding stuff up as she backed herself into it. And you could hear his frustration there. He's like, that's what I was asking you. And you say it's misinformation. It has gotten so absurd that she had to acknowledge. I mean, he's bringing up, this is what Biden said. This is what Mayorkas said. I'm just asking you about what your own people are saying. That's not disinformation. And she's like, well, the way you're asking the question is. I mean, it's what a horror show these people have turned this country into. They spend more time and effort trying to explain away their incompetency in their lives that it would take to actually be competent. I used to work with this guy. This is a long time ago. And he was, but just, he didn't do what he was supposed to do a lot of times. He just didn't do his job. And, it would catch up with him and he would make excuses. And there was always, and yeah, you knew, you're like, oh, again, oh, what a shock. This happened or that happened. And I remember once thinking the amount of time and effort he puts into trying to evade doing his work, it would take less effort to actually just do the work. I mean, and literally that was the case. You'd have 10 minutes worth of work and collectively he'd spend 2 hours trying to avoid doing it. And this administration, at times you think your job would be a lot easier if you just did it. Why is it so hard to get everyone on the same page here, even if it's based off of, it's not even true what you're saying. Is there money? Isn't there money? I mean, within that 2.5 minute discussion in which Peter just at the end, you could hear the exhaust. He's like, that's what I asked you. And you said that it was disinformation. She argues that there's plenty of money, we're not out of money, and then argues that Congress needs to do its job because we don't have the money. Which is it? Is there enough? Isn't there enough? If there is enough, can it be spent? Can it be spent? Is the White House doing? I mean, Biden just last Saturday said, I was there. They have everything they need. So according to Joe Biden, there isn't a need for any more money. He said they are very happy and that they have everything they need. Those were his exact words. They can't even get the messaging down. Is it any wonder that the idea that people, that they can't even get their messaging down, the idea that they somehow are going to be able to competently actually run the show? I mean, no wonder there's so many people stranded that are relying solely on average Americans and volunteers to come rescue them. And even that at times is being blocked by this administration or government officials. There's been a back and forth between Kamala Harris and Ron DeSantis. Kamala Harris has been trying to get on the phone with Ron DeSantis in Florida, and has not picked up the phone. And she said that he was being very selfish and political. So we'll play that audio and then his response to it, and then what is really happening here. It's pretty straightforward, actually. It's not that complicated. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Kamala Harris has been trying to get Ron DeSantis on the phone, and he has not taken the time out in order to accommodate her phone call. Excuse me. She was asked about that somewhere.
On hurricanes, resources, and help. How does that hurt the situation here?
You know, moments of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moments that anyone who calls themselves a leader says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now. And playing political games at this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations, is just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish. And it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
Now, notice, of course, the way the question was asked. How is that hurting things? It isn't this non-biased, non-leading question. Hey, DeSantis says that he doesn't really need to talk with you. You're trying to call him. Any thoughts on that? It's how does that hurt things? Explain to us why he's a bad guy. Now, DeSantis was on with Hannity responding to this. This was last night.
Laser focus on leveraging all resources available, including from the federal government. And I've been in touch with both FEMA and the president, as well as marshaling all our state agencies and working to support our local communities. And so for Kamala Harris to try to say that my sole focus on the people of Florida is somehow selfish is delusional. She has no role in this. In fact, she's been vice president for 3.5 years. I've dealt with a number of storms under this administration. She has never contributed anything to any of these efforts. And so what I think is selfish is her trying to blunder into this. No. And here's the thing. She has no role. No, she has no role in this process. I'm in contact with the president of the United States. I'm in contact with FEMA director. I'm obviously managing all our state agencies. We're supporting all our local government. And I will say this. I've had storms under both President Trump and President Biden, and I've worked well with both of them. She's the first one who's trying to politicize the storm, and she's doing that just because of her campaign. She's trying to get some type of an edge. She knows she's doing poorly, and so she's playing these political games. I don't have time for political games. I've got peoples whose lives are on the line. I've got peoples whose homes and their possessions are on the line, and we are focused 100% on that mission. I'm not worried about playing her political games. And so she is being selfish by trying to blunder into this when we're working just fine.
So what he's saying in a nutshell is that there's no reason for her to be involved in this. She's never been involved in this. The reason I'm not picking up the phone is because we're doing this. We've done this before. We've done it before under this administration. It's never involved her. Why all of a sudden? Now, of course, people who are on the left, they're going to see it as, well, no, just like Kamala Harris accused him. Well, he's the one playing politics.
Why would you need to talk to the vice president when you've already talked to the president?
Well, and that's to his, and even beyond that. I mean, so let's pretend that she's not running for president. Let's say she's not running for president at all. And she just has never been involved in any of these. This is to your point. In any hurricane during the Biden administration. She's never been, you've got Mayorkas, you've got FEMA, you've got Biden, all these people. And here you're on DeSantis, and all of a sudden out of the blue, you're told Kamala Harris is wanting to talk to you. You're like, why the hell is she calling me? This is not part of the duties she has. She's never been involved in this before. We wouldn't have time for it. Like, just take random phone calls from people all of a sudden that have never been involved before. If you'd been given a heads up, Biden's like, hey, listen, I got a beach date, and so I'm not going to be able to handle this for the next couple of days. Kamala's going to be calling you in my place. Then you'd have a different situation. So if you're trying to take an objective view of who's playing politics here, the question is, why is she calling now, but she never has before? Why is she coming onto the scene and trying to get phone conversations about what's going on with Ron DeSantis? Why is she doing it now, but she didn't do it before? Well, there's only one difference. She's running for president now, and she wasn't before. So which of the two are politicizing things? Ron DeSantis, his position is, let's do this the same way. We deal with the same people. We deal with the president. We deal with the head of FEMA. We deal with, all these other people. He's not changing the way things are being done. She is, or attempting to. So you tell me which of those two is doing something for political reasons. The guy who's doing the exact same way, regardless of who's president or running for president, rather, or the person who all of a sudden, now that she's running for president, is trying to be part of the equation. Any honest, objective person understands why she's doing it. Unless there's just some other reason that has nothing whatsoever to do with her running for the presidency, that she just now, for the very first time, decided to be part of hurricane relief efforts. Of course this is for political reasons. Of course it is. And can you imagine, here you are, I mean, DeSantis just manages to handle these things brilliantly. I guess this is just what happens when you have somebody who's competent in a leadership position. We're pretty accustomed to that not being the norm. And so you're just like, because you think about some of the past hurricanes that have hit Florida that have been devastating, but it's just like, as best as possible, things get up and going again. And it is in a way that really has minimal call for help from the federal government. They do a pretty good job of taking care of themselves. That doesn't mean that they don't get help. I mean, he said, listen, I've coordinated with national. We know what we're doing. He's got it figured out. And then you got Kamala Harris is on the phone. She wants to, I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? If I were him, would answer the phone just so I could hang up on her. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah made a really good point. The Democrats that are complaining that Kamala's not being allowed to be involved in hurricane, just all things hurricane situationally speaking in Florida, are the same Democrats that, as of the last several months, have been saying, well, she's vice president. She really doesn't have that much authority. Of course, when she was first in the White House as vice president, they gave her titles like border czar and put her in charge of AI and all of these other things to demonstrate how significant and important and what a significant force she was in the White House. Then, of course, when she gets picked by the billionaire donors in order to replace Biden on the ticket, and people begin saying, okay, well, now you need, Okay, Biden was to answer for all of the failures. Now you need to. And the answer was, well, she's vice president. She really doesn't have any power whatsoever.
Yeah, she doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, she doesn't do anything. You can't tie her to anything. And now they're back to, how dare you not let her? She's instrumental in all this hurricane stuff. When, as DeSantis pointed out, she's never once in the hurricanes that have occurred under the Biden administration been involved in any capacity whatsoever. You think about the macabre, twisted nature. I tell you, part of the reason she's doing it is they're mad because Trump has been so well received in his capacity as former president and bringing as a private citizen much needed items into some of these hurricane ravaged areas. And she's like, well, we got to get in on this too. The problem is, for her, Trump's involvement was helpful. Hers is not. News in 60 seconds. iwantagreathomeloan.com. But interest rates, maybe they'll go down some more. Maybe. You can refinance. Should you wait? Should you not wait? Well, I don't have the best credit score. What do I do with that? Listen, if you have any but eyes or but this or but that prevent you from at least checking out whether or not it is a good time to refinance or take out a home loan, like, well, but I think I'll wait for this, or, but I heard this, just go to iwantagreathomeloan.com, and through that portal, get in touch with someone from the team, the characters and other team members there, and they're going to ask for some info and get a first glance at where you stand. And one of the things, and I've told this story before, so I'll tell it again, years ago when I went through the process for the purchase of our new home, I got a call back, and there were like 2 or 3 different options. Well, if you do this, you can do this, so forth, and but also it was noted when it came to my credit score that if I made, it was just like I think a $200 payment towards something. I don't even remember what it was. That it was going to bump my score in a manner that drastically improved the rates that I could get. And it made a huge difference. I can only imagine the amount of money over time that saved me, that looking into it. And I didn't really know that you could. So I always thought of credit as, there's something you can't, just pay your bills on time. And that's all you can do, and it takes forever to change. Because you hear those things like, well, if you do this, it'll take 7 years for it to get off your record. And so in my mind, all things credit took forever. I didn't realize that making a $200 payment in order to get debt down could, in just a week's time, make such a difference. But anyhow, everyone's different, situation's different, and that's where they can help you. iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. I forgot to mention this story. I was going to mention it right after I played the audio of Karine Jean-Pierre getting all, defensive is too, I was going to use a word, but I don't know if it's
my first response word was probably not radio appropriate.
She got a little snippy. I guess she got a little snippy, and she folded up her. It's like, but that's just what you.
I'm leaving.
I'm leaving. Stormed out, and it was because she backed herself into a corner. You can go back and listen to the audio. I mean, Peter Ducey was just trying to get a straight answer out of her regarding money for storm relief, because you got Mayorkas saying we don't have any. You got the IG's report saying, yeah, he's got billions. He's just sitting on it. You have Biden on Saturday saying that. When he was asked about the people in North Carolina and Tennessee and all the areas of hurricane damage, and he said that they're happy and they have everything that they need. Then you have other people in the White House saying that no, they need more money, but because Congress won't give it to them. So there's 1,000 different messages going on, and they're all coming from the same place. And so Peter Ducey was just trying to find out, like, what. You got this over here and that over here. What's the real story? And she, of course, accused him of spreading disinformation, which is dangerous. Part of the reason it's dangerous, she says, is that because if people think that there isn't enough money, then they're going to be afraid to ask for help, and then bad things may happen to them. That is the insanely immature position that is taken by Karine Jean-Pierre. Anyhow, point being is that she got flustered, and then she got snippy, and she took her folders, and she stormed off the stage. I forgot to mention this story. It was also announced she got a promotion. She's now a senior advisor to Biden. I kid you not, a senior advisor. The woman who has demonstrated she's probably the single worst, and I'm not saying this to overstate things. She's got to be the single worst press secretary that we've ever seen. Ever. Since press secretaries existed. Now, some will argue, well, she's been handicapped with what she has to deal with. And I think that there is reasonable discussion that could be had as to, all right, well, how much did that weigh her down? How much did that handicap her? But I just don't think that you could find anyone worse than her. People, oh, she's not the worst. Who is worse? I mean, really, who is a worse press secretary? And there may be some. She's pretty bad. So, what is the standard rule in government, particularly for Democrats? The bigger the failure you are, the more likely you are to get promoted. And to Kamala Harris, it was announced, has been promoted to senior advisor to Biden, which in reality, at this point, what difference does it make? I guess it goes on the resume. Coming up, going to play some audio, 60 Minutes, Kamala Harris demonstrating why it is that she does not do interviews. 60 Minutes actually did a really good job. Whitaker, the interviewer, asking some straight up, normal, relevant questions, which did not go well for her. Also, a little bit of Tim Walz in there because we got to have that too. Right now, the latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight clear with a low around 47. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 80. And on Thursday, sunny with a high near 82.
Now, you know that Kamala Harris did poorly with her 60 Minutes interview that aired last night for a couple of reasons. One, it isn't the Kamala Harris supporters that are pushing out clips of the interviews or of the interview. It is Team Trump. Anytime there is an interview and the supporters of the interviewee are just sort of letting it quietly go by while your opposition is making sure as many people see it as possible, that did not go well for you. Another way we know that it didn't go well is the following insider report here, news item. Kamala Harris hit 60 Minutes without Donald Trump. Political scientists weigh in on whether the interview matters. So it didn't go well. They know it didn't go well, so they have to find people to talk about why it really actually was pretty good for her. They've got to put some sort of spin on it because they know. So they got some experts to tell us how we all feel about it so that they can tell us how we all feel about it. And the way that we feel about it is it really doesn't matter so much what she said. What's most important is that Donald Trump didn't do the interview, and that's really going to bother you, and it's going to bother me, and we're going to feel as if he's not willing to go on 60 Minutes. That speaks volumes about him in a negative way. So now we know how we feel, thanks to the media. Here she is, and this guy who, let's move this story. Whitaker is the journalist who is at Bill, I believe it's Bill Whitaker, 60 Minutes, and he asked some really great questions, very relevant questions, very straightforward questions, nothing that should be a gotcha sort of question. One of them was regarding, obviously, the border and the fact that the border is pretty bad under this administration.
I've been covering the border for years. And so I know this is not a problem that started with your administration.
Correct.
But there was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years of your administration. As a matter of fact, arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump. Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem, and solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
But what I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem. Okay.
But the numbers did quadruple.
And the numbers today, because of what we have done, we have cut the flow of illegal immigration by half. We have cut the flow of fentanyl by half, but we need Congress to be able to act to actually fix the problem.
All right. So what the average American saw is she's not answering the question. And I think that he pretty fairly was like, yeah, but come on, tripled under you. Now, incidentally, her claim that they've cut illegal immigration, that is a lie. What they have done is funneled a large number of the illegals away from coming across the border illegally and instead funneling them through the ports. This is what that whole app thing was about. That app was developed so that they could reroute millions and millions of the illegals to come into this country other than through just the southern border, so that they could then go out there and claim, oh, look, we've cut the number of people coming into the country illegally in half, when they did not. They simply rerouted them. It may be nitpicking, but describing what the administration did as allowing a flood of illegals to come into this country is not really as accurate as it could be. They invited. There's a difference. And when I say they invited, literally invited Joe Biden on that debate stage when he was running for the Democrat nomination, standing there, and Kamala Harris was on one end of the stage. I don't believe she had dropped out at that point. And Joe Biden said to all the illegals who were turned away at the border under the Trump administration, he said, if I get elected president, come back. That is not allowing something to happen. That is inviting it to happen. Let's see. All right. He also asked her a question about democracy and the fact that, you know, she was really handed the nomination, and that's not normally the way we do things in America.
Was democracy best served by President Biden stepping down and basically handing you a nomination? You didn't have to go through a primary process. You didn't have to fight off other contenders. That's not really the way our system was intended to work.
President Biden made a decision that I think history is going to show is rare among leaders, which was to put country before self. And I am proud to have earned the support of the vast majority of delegates and to have been elected the Democratic nominee. I am proud to have received the endorsement of leaders around this country from every background and walk of life to fight in this election over the next month for our democracy.
But I think this truncated process is why people think or say they don't really know who you are.
Look, I've been in this race for 70 days.
So now I'll take it. I mean, the guy, he put it out there. And it's so perfect because this is the political party that is going on and on about democracy. And he's like, hey, you know, you didn't really even run for the nomination. That's not normally how we do things in a democracy. You really think that the way that you got handpicked by billionaire donors and put in that, is that good for democracy? Of course, she didn't answer the question. Oh, what Joe Biden did was historic. Stepping aside, which of course is absurd. He was forced out, stepping aside for the good of the country. The billionaire donors dried up the money, so he couldn't move forward. Suffocated him. More audio coming up from the 60 Minutes interview, including Tim Walz being asked about being a liar. His response to that also. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. CBS 60 Minutes interviewing last night with Kamala Harris did not go well. Evidence of that is the fact that it is Republicans that are pushing out clips of the interview, trying to get as many people to see them as possible. And Bill Whitaker of 60 Minutes, he asked some great questions. Now, this week, she's going to spend time on The View and with Stephen Colbert and Howard Stearns, where they will ask her questions like, what's it like, knowing that you are running to save democracy and that you are so incredible and wonderful and Donald Trump is evil and trying to overthrow the government. So that's what you're going to get there. And the 60 Minutes interview, though, she's asked straight up legit questions like, is it good for democracy, the fact that you were just handed the nomination, you didn't even have to run for it? One of the other questions that she was asked, or noting the fact that, people still say they don't really know you.
Registered voters still say they don't know you. They don't know what makes you tick. And why do you think that is? What's the disconnect?
It's an election, Bill. And I take it seriously that I have to earn everyone's vote. This is an election for President of the United States. No one should be able to take for granted that they can just declare themselves a candidate and automatically receive support. You have to earn it. And that's what I intend to do.
Now, of course, you have to earn it. As he asked also during the interview. Now, I don't know if the election question came before or after this. You didn't earn it. You did not earn that nomination. His point that you still have a significant portion of the population that say they don't know you, and her reason is, well, that's because this is an election. That's like I've got somebody coming in town, interviewing for a job, spend a great deal of time with them, and talking about their vision for things and what they would see the future look like with them, and then at the end of it all, or getting towards the end, saying, I got to be honest with you, I just still don't really feel as if I know what your thoughts and your plans are if you get this job. And then that person saying, well, this is just a job interview. Oh, yeah, I know that. That's the whole point, is afterwards, or at least to some degree during, I start to get an idea of who you are. The fact that Kamala Harris notes this is an election, yet people still don't know who she is, that's not a good excuse. She was asked about the fact that she, was for fracking, against it, for Medicare for all, then against it, for this, the flip-flopping, and the fact that contributes to the fact that people have no idea who the heck she is, what she stands for. So we asked her that question. Then he asked her about a gun, the gun ownership. And she has a tell, which isn't an uncommon tell, but she has this tell when she's lying. And it's not when she's talking. I mean, yes. But there's another tell in the way that she talks. And then some Tim Waltz audio in which he was asked why it is, that he lies so much. All that coming ahead. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight, clear with a low around 47. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 80. And on Thursday, sunny with a high near 82. And real quick, I wanted to read a review for my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Skip wrote, "They are an excellent roofing company. I recently needed help finding a leak, and they fixed the leak without charging me. I highly recommend their services. They're very fast, friendly, and reliable. They send photos of all of their work before and after, and I cannot say enough about this company, especially nowadays when it's a miracle if you even get a call back from a contractor." Special shout out to Josh for his professionalism and willingness to help. I will use the Pyramid team for any future repairs or replacements. Now, whether you need a whole new roof or just a simple roof repair, now the Pyramid team, they're going to get you all taken care of before that cooler fall weather moves into the Ozarks. Right now is actually the best time to schedule all of that work because contractors, they are finally starting to catch their breath and you can expect quicker turnaround. If it is time to have the Pyramid team out at your home, go ahead and give Josh a call today. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
CBS interview airing last night, and one of the questions that Kamala was asked or presented with in terms of just to get her thoughts is, the fact that virtually every issue she has a stance on is the opposite of where she stood just prior to the billionaire donors giving her the nomination.
Let me tell you what your critics and the columnists say.
Okay.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for. And I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States. And I have been traveling our country. And I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground. I believe in building consensus. We are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds. And what the American people do want is that we have leaders who can build consensus, where we can figure out compromise and understand it's not a bad thing, as long as you don't compromise your values, to find common sense solutions. And that has been my approach.
Don't you get that? So that's why she has changed her position on all the relevant issues. Now, this is someone, I love, I just believe in compromising. This is a woman who is saying that she's supporting completely eliminating the filibuster so she can get her way on abortion. That's that reaching across the aisle thing that she said. If I don't get my way, I'll just nuclear bomb everything. I will destroy the system so that I get my way. That's the compromise that she's talking about? Oh, that's kind of interesting. Now, again, I'll take what I can get. These were good questions. But if I'm really breaking it down, I'm going to want clarification. When she argues the reason, or that the situation is this, she was for loosening up security on the border, and then she was for tightening it up. Let's just use the wall specifically. She said all sorts of horrible things about the wall, called it a medieval vanity project, walls don't work, all of that. That was then. And now she is not only for border security and a wall, but she has herself in campaign ads walking along that wall. Her position is that her values have not changed. What is that value? And how is it consistent with being against a wall? And how is that same unchanged value consistent with supporting the building of a wall? That's what needs to be answered. She continues to say, sure, I've completely changed on my positions, but my belief and my values regarding that particular issue have stayed constant. Then explain that. Explain how your values are in line with banning fracking, and then that same value is in line with not banning fracking. This is the question she needs to explain, or that's she needs to. I mean, I talk about this as if she's going to give any sort of answer. The thing about all of these answers is that you can mix and match them to any question she's asked. I mean, really, because they're so disconnected from the question itself. You could literally take any of her answers and just move it to any of the other questions, mix them all together, and you would have no idea that that was done. Kamala Harris claims that she owns a firearm, and she claims that that proves she believes that average citizens have the God-given right to protect themselves with a firearm, which is a false argument. People on the left, in particular, oftentimes believe that they have the right to do something the average citizen does not. If that was ever on full display, it was during COVID, where consistently Democrat lawmakers and executives, in government, governors, Newsom's a good example, would ban people from certain activities, but they would get caught participating in those activities themselves. So the idea that even if she does own a gun, that somehow means she believes in the God-given right of other people to own one is a false position argument. But that being said, it's clear people don't believe her because she keeps getting asked about this gun. The fact that it keeps coming up, it demonstrates no one believes she owns one. Or if she does, it's just been given to her so she can legitimately say it. But she has this tell. And the tell is when she's lying, in addition to the fact that she's talking, she raises her voice. Now, this isn't uncommon. This is a telltale sign of somebody who's lying. Say, oh, yeah. A few weeks ago, she was asked the question, can people trust you? And her response was, yeah. Because, she knew the answer was no, they can't trust me. She has a similar response when asked about a firearm.
A hard left turn here, but you recently surprised people when you said that you are a gun owner. And then if someone came into your house...
That was not the first time I've talked about it. That's not the first time I've talked about it.
So what kind of gun do you own, and when and why did you get it?
I have a Glock, and I've had it for quite some time. And I mean, look, Bill, my background is in law enforcement. And so there you go.
Have you ever fired it?
Yes. Of course I have. At a shooting range. Yes, of course I have.
Yes. No, she's lying. You can absolutely tell that she's lying. And again, the fact that she continues to get asked this question, I mean, come on, everyone knows. Everyone knows Kamala's a liar. That being said, coming up, Tim Walz being asked by Bill Whitaker at 60 Minutes, about all the lies. His answer probably won't surprise you. I grabbed a review from a few years ago for Emily Johnson. I oftentimes read the more recent ones, but I thought I'd grab one that I hadn't read from Megan. Emily is who you want on your team. We worked with Emily in the fall of 21, winter 2022, through. Yes, that's right. So that's like over a year. Putting in 5 offers before we finally won a bidding war. At one point, we almost gave up due to the market, but Emily was consistent, persistent, had all the right answers. We bought a home that needed some updating. Her vision actually inspired one of our projects that turned out amazing. Not only is she kind and fun, she's knowledgeable, works crazy hours to meet your needs, and is honest. She pointed out things along the way we didn't think of. Thank you, Emily. Oh, and she sold our previous home, held an open house on day 1 of the listing during a snowstorm. We had our first offer 4 hours later for more than the asking price. Yeah, there are a lot of realtors out there, lots and lots of them. But there's only one Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. During an interview with CBS's 60 Minutes, it aired yesterday, Democratic vice presidential candidate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, addressed the fact that he lies a lot. I sometimes forget about the DUI lie. That one kind of got brushed over.
Yeah.
Which, what was it? He said he was just really tired or something. And they tried to claim that it wasn't, but he was. I mean, he was drunk driving. Yeah, he was just being a knucklehead. And it was, it was some time ago. It wasn't anything recent. He lied about how his daughter was conceived, falsely claiming that they used IVF, which they did not. Nothing says a great dad like one who will lie about your conception for the purposes of political gain. He's lied about his ranking in the military. He's lied about seeing war, being in combat. He's lied about being in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre, protesting with pro-democracy people. Now, these are the lies off the top of my head that we know about. And he was there's a little quick segment on that on this 60 Minutes interview.
2 months ago, you and Kamala Harris barely knew each other. Now you're running together, vying for the top offices in the land. It's not possible that you agree on everything.
Yeah.
What have been some disagreements you've had since you became a team?
Well, she probably disagreed with, she said, Tim, you need to be a little more careful on how you say things, whatever it might be.
Whatever it might be, Walz has been criticized for embellishing or telling outright falsehoods about his military record and about his travels to Asia in the 1980s. In your debate with J.D. Vance, you said, I'm a knucklehead at times. And I think you were referring to the time that you said that you were in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square unrest when you were not.
Yeah.
Is that kind of misrepresentation that more than just being a knucklehead?
I think folks know who I am, and I think they know the difference between someone expressing emotion, telling a story, getting a date wrong rather than a pathological liar like Donald Trump.
But I think it comes down to the question of whether you can be trusted to tell the truth.
Yeah, well, I can. I think I can. I will own up to being a knucklehead at times, but the folks closest to me know that I keep my word.
I think he's lying about that.
Yeah. Well, so he framed his lies as getting a date wrong. Which of those lies had anything to do with the date? The DUI, he just claimed he wasn't drunk when he was. That's not a date issue. He claiming that his daughter was conceived through IVF. She wasn't. That doesn't have anything to do with the date. He claimed that he carried guns of war into combat. He never did. I mean, unless he's talking about, technically that's a date. I claimed something that happened and it didn't. So, in terms of time, there was no time. There's no wrong date associated with that. He claimed that he was protesting with pro-democracy people in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre. He wasn't. That's not a date issue. It's not like there were 8 different Tiananmen Square massacres, and he was at one in November, not the February one, but said he was in the February one, not the November. So none of these instances in which he has been caught lying his rank in the military, that's not a date issue, have anything to do with the date whatsoever. This is where you'd like to see the journalist stop him and go, now, which one are you referring to? You know, I'm just a knucklehead, and whenever I'm telling lies, it's just about a date. Not like Trump. He's a pathological liar, of course. But what I'm talking about, it's just a date. Now, which of your falsehoods are you referencing when you talk about getting the date wrong? You know, like it's just an accident. These excuses that are used as a get-out-of-jail-free card, I just imagine the hilarity of trying to use these in everyday life. You get caught stealing money from work. I just got the date wrong. You get pulled over for running over somebody's mailbox and you're 3 times over the legal limit. I just got the date wrong, that's all. This magical world of elitism that the left get to live in which they are able to use excuses that have no relevancy whatsoever, that you and I are never able to use. Well, I'm just a knucklehead. Gah, gah, gah. Timmy Waltz. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Okay, all right. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Wilder RV, all of your RV needs and winterization, that time will come. Though we still have wonderful RVing weather, but when the time does come, Wilder RV. Clinton, Missouri, straight up 13. Short drive. Maybe it's time to upgrade or even downgrade. You know, sometimes that happens. You don't need one quite so large because the kids are out of the house. Or maybe all of a sudden the grandkids are old enough to where you'd like to take them with you. And so you need that extra bunk room or whatever it may be. End of year deals. This could be a good time to upgrade with Wilder RV. They'll handle anything that you possibly throw at them in terms of questions. They're great people. They don't try to upsell, and they have financing available. And you can check out their site. It's real transparent when it comes to pricing. What you see is what you get. There's no upselling. You don't have to worry about any of that. WilderRV.com, and you can also find them at KSGF.com under Nick's endorsements. Did want to mention that we have a local for less. Those are coming up on Friday, 10 a.m., and it's for Springfield Little Theater's Murder on the Orient Express. Now, what you're actually purchasing for $25 is a $50 gift certificate that you then use to purchase tickets for the performance. That will be at Springfield Little Theater October 18th through 27th. So that gives you leeway to, it doesn't tie you down to one specific date, but it allows you to choose amongst those. The Israeli media is reporting that the Biden administration has offered Israel a, quote, compensation package in exchange for refraining from attacks on a list of specific targets in Iran. What we have here is the Biden administration has a specific list, presumably from the Iranians. Not sure where else why otherwise there would be any interest here. And they're trying to bribe Israel on behalf of Iran. The Jerusalem Post, citing Israel's Kan 11 News, said the package would include a total guarantee of comprehensive diplomatic protection as well as a weapons package and was offered directly in return for holding off on striking certain targets in Iran. An American official said, if you don't hit targets A, B, C, we'll provide you with diplomatic protection and an arms package. According to Kan 11's Amachi Stein, the Israeli government was somewhat cool to the proposal, although it remains in active consultation with the U.S. government and military about its response to Iran's missile attack last week. Saying Israeli officials responded saying, we consider the United States and listen to them, but we will do anything and everything we can to protect the citizens and the security of the state of Israel. Well, now, isn't this just grand? You have the Biden administration acting as the lapdog of Iran, offering up taxpayer-funded goodies in exchange for not fully retaliating against Iran, who wants Israel, of course, wiped off the map. Does this administration ever negotiate on behalf of the good guy? Does this administration ever go to bat and use its leverage for the good guy? Is it always the bad guy? Whether it's giving the Taliban a country, trying to give Hamas their own country, funneling money to Iran, and now doing their bidding in order to try and protect themselves. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.